What is up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Imperial Diecast. Today I'm going to be doing a review on this 1/24 scale Jaguar XJ220 by Maisto. Now, you might know this car from Need for Speed 2 SE, but the first time I came across this car was on a Google search, and when I did, I couldn't believe my eyes. I thought I was looking at a futuristic concept car. That's how alien this car looked to me. If you didn't know anything about the XJ220, there is no way you can tell which decade this car is from, just by looking at it. And that's why this is my favorite Jaguar, because of its timelessly elegant design. I mean, if you look at a Ferrari Testarossa, you can immediately tell it's from the 80s. Same with the Countach. But you would not know which decade this car is from. I don't think it would look out of place at a 2020 car show, but this is actually a 30-year-old vehicle from the early 90s. And the same applies to its predecessor, the XJR15, of which there's a 118 version by Cult Scale Models, and a 143 by Spark. Jaguar made some timelessly exotic-looking cars in the past. Production of the XJ220 ran from 1992 until 1994, and it wasn't just pretty, it was fast. The stock car, recording a top speed of 341.7 kilometers per hour, or 212.3 miles per hour, first in Texas, and then again at the Nardo test track in Italy, which made it the fastest production car in the world. Just like its spiritual predecessor, the XK120 was back in 1949. Of course, in the Jaguar XJ220's case, the car could only hold the record for about 1 year, until 1993, when the McLaren F1 took the throne, and holds it to this day among naturally aspirated production cars. Even with the catalytic converters and the rev limiter removed, the fastest the XJ220 was ever able to go was 217 miles per hour. But hey, 220 sounds like a nice round number, right? Welcome to the 90s. So here's what the model looks like inside its box. This model was released probably in the year 1992, so this is like an almost 30-year-old box. I can see it says Special Edition Maisto at the top. And then you've got the shell logo right here, the vintage one. Nameplate saying Jaguar XJ220. 1/24 scale. And here at the back, we have a preview of the model, although this is the 1/18 scale model by Maisto. The way you can tell is because of these beige seats. Alright, I'd say we unscrew this vehicle from the base, and then let's get started. And this is actually the predecessor of the Jaguar CX75, which never got past the concept stage. But the XJ220 did. You see, even though it was also initially designed only as a concept car by an informal group of 12 Jaguar employees working in their spare time called the Saturday Club, when they first unveiled the V12 all-wheel drive concept to the public at the 1988 British International Motor Show in Birmingham, it was met with overwhelmingly positive reception. It completely overshadowed the Ferrari F40, which was also on display. Everybody came to see the XJ220 concept, and many gave Jaguar advance deposits of tens of thousands of pounds to secure an order for the production version, which then convinced Jaguar to put this into production. But because of emissions regulations, the production version ended up being only rear-wheel drive, and the engine size was reduced to a turbo V6. This change of the car's specs on paper made many people cancel their orders, and from a planned production run of 350, Jaguar only ended up making about 270 of them, each with a retail price of £470,000. And this was back in 1992, making it one of the most expensive cars in the world at the time. And then the price depreciated like crazy, and I think a decade or so ago, you could get this car for less than £100,000. Today the price has peaked again, and you won't find one for less than $500,000. Next to the silver, Maisto also made this car in dark red, dark blue, and of course British Racing Green, both in 124 and 118 scale. And this is actually one of the most commonly available vintage Maistos out there. But most of the time this car is sold without a box, with dust and grime everywhere, the windshield's yellowed out, the license plate stickers peeling off, etc. So you kind of forget how nice the model really is, until you find one in such a pristine condition. Now, of course, I did some modifications to this car to make it look better than the stock 124 scale Maisto. Chiefly what I did was I used a black marker to trace these panel gaps around the hood to also wrap around the headlight covers, since they're retractable on the real car, and would have gaps there as well. These aren't pop-up headlights as much as pop-down headlight covers. Of course, on this model it's not possible, but because I kind of traced this with the marker, it almost looks like it can be pushed down. I also painted half of the indicators in orange, just like on the real car. And I also painted this Jaguar logo up front, because it was black plastic just like the rest of the front grille. But now I think it looks better because you can actually see it. If we take a closer look at this front grille, we'll actually see that this is fully perforated, even though it's just a 124 scale model. And below the grille we have another air vent. And otherwise there's not a whole lot else to see on the front of this model. The front trunk opens on this car, like this, and inside you'll see that we've got these two radiators, and they're painted in black, just like on the real car. On the 1/18 scale Maisto XJ220, these are made in a gray plastic, which I think doesn't look as good as these black radiators. There isn't a whole lot of storage space in the front trunk. However, you're not supposed to store anything in this trunk, because on the real car this whole front trunk area has to be kept free from any luggage so that the airflow will work, otherwise the engine will overheat. Now you might ask, how is that possible if the engine of this car is located all the way at the back? Well, the answer is, the way the airflow works on this car is that the air is basically sucked in here at the front. It goes through these radiators. It then exits through these vents here, goes over the car, and then into this vent over here, I believe. And that's how it reaches the engine and is able to cool it. Now, as you can see over here, I've also pretended to trace the depth of these additional vents here, because on the 124 scale Maisto version, they are not properly perforated, but on the 118 scale version, they are. And there's also another manufacturer in 124 scale, which is Matchbox Masterclass, and they actually make this 124 scale Jaguar XJ220 as well. And there, this part is also perforated. So this was probably the main downside of the 124 scale Maisto. But I think it looks a little bit better now with the marker than it would have been without anything. What I love about the Jaguar XJ220 is this huge sunroof. And I think this is arguably the best part about the Maisto, because this is like one huge sunroof, whereas on the Matchbox, the center part in the middle here is made out of silver, so it kind of like gets in the way of the overall look of the sunroof. And just look at how sleek and low profile this car is. It's in fact longer than the Ferrari F40. I absolutely love the wheels of the XJ220. I like collecting cars with unique rims and hate the typical 5-spoke ones or BBS style ones that the industry is teeming with. These wheels are supposed to be 17-inch up front, 18-inch at the back. You've got the Jaguar logo here at the center. And you even have the air nozzle down here. I love the accuracy of the tire wall branding. As you can see, these are Bridgestone tires. Then it says here Expedia SO1. And here at the front, we have 255 45 ZR17s. And then at the back, of course, we also have Bridgestones, Expedia SO1s. These are 345 35 ZR18s. It's always nice to have this kind of detail level on a 124 scale car. Now, one thing that's missing on both the 124 and 118 scale Maisto XJ220 is the vent glass, because it doesn't have any up here. But you will find vent glass on the 124 scale Matchbox version of this car. And just like that, the 124 scale Maisto over here also does not have the depth of this little window here properly done. I mean, you can see it's just indicated at. But on the 124 scale Matchbox version, they actually have a proper opening here. Another little modification that I made to this 124 scale Maisto is that I painted the rubber trim around the mirrors in black, which Maisto hasn't even done on the 1/18th scale either. So now it actually looks more like the mirrors of the real car. Down here you can see it says XJ220, and above it we have the air intakes that feed the turbochargers. Now these were in a bright chrome. I kind of tried to make it look like it's caught some dust and dirt, and basically what I did was I used a black paint, thin paint, so like a wash. Didn't come out too well on this side, but on the other side it looks better, I think. And here's a look at the back of the car, and this is also where I made the biggest modification to this car, which is painting the taillights, because these taillights are completely amiss on the 124 scale version, and I was really disappointed by that, because the real Jaguar XJ220 obviously has these taillights behind the rear grille, and so I just found out on the internet what they're supposed to look like, and then I painted them in the proper colors. So you've got the silver part towards the middle, and then you have the orange indicators and the red brake light down below. What I like about this rear grille, though, is that it is perforated as well, which is really nice. And below you can see that it says XJ220 on the rear license plate. And above it says Jaguar in black lettering. You've got an exhaust on either side of the massive rear diffuser. But what's even more impressive is this spoiler here at the back. Now, even on the real car, this is not a spoiler that can lift or lower, it's fixed. But it still looks nice. And this is also where the storage area would be on the real car. Like this part right here. Another cool feature on this 124 scale car is that next to the doors and the frunk, the rear engine cover also opens. Although it doesn't really stay open, so let's try that again. It's a little bit difficult to hold it open, but there you go. Close this. And now let's take a look at this engine right here. And what you're looking at here is a turbocharged 3.5 liter V6 producing 540 horsepower. These days it is pretty common for supercars to have smaller turbocharged engines. But back in the 90s, it was pretty scandalous for a car this size to not have a V12. I think Maisto did a pretty good job regarding the detail level on this 124 scale engine. I mean, it's got a lot of depth to it. You've also got some extra bit of paint here in blue and in gold. You can see that on each of the engine blocks it says Jaguar up here. And down here it also says XJ220 in raised lettering, which is pretty cool. And down there you can also see the turbochargers. Got your gas cap up here. And you can also see that back here, these vents are also perforated, although it's very narrow. And now let's take a look at the car's interior. The entire instrument panel is just a sticker, but you can see that next to the gauges, there are air vents to either side of the steering wheel, 4 in total, and your climate control knobs are on the very left. Just like on the real car, the driver's side mirror is mounted on the fender, while the passenger side mirror is mounted on the door. And the reason for that is if it had been mounted on the fender, the driver wouldn't be able to see it because it would be blocked by the A-pillar. This car has a 5-speed manual transmission. You can see the gear shift up there. And down here we have the parking brake. And here's a look at the headliner. And that little black part is where the dome lights would be on the real Jag. And now let's check out the passenger side. If I close the driver's side door, you'll notice that right next to the steering wheel, the instrument panel would actually wrap around the driver because of this little extra bit of gauges right here, which of course are just blank plastic on this 124 scale model, but on the 118 scale model, Maisto does provide you with a sticker showing 4 extra gauges. But it's nice that they've at least hinted that in this 124 scale model. Taking a look at the seats, they're done pretty well. But the cool thing about them is that they actually move. I don't think I have any other 124 scale car with reclining seats. And now let's take a look at the bottom of this car. And you can see that it says Jaguar XJ220 scale 124 Maisto made in Thailand. You can see all the riveting here, and of course we've got the rear diffuser here. It's pretty alright. So guys, thanks again for checking out the review of this 124 scale Jaguar XJ220 by Maisto. If you're interested in more 90s scale cars, I have uploaded some other reviews over here. Thanks again for watching, take care, and this is Imperial Diecast, signing out.